Hey, welcome back to The Good, the Bad, and the Techy, a podcast all about leading edge technology. I'm VP of Engagement, John Collins.
And I'm COO Howard Holton.
So this week, we want to cut through the jargon and give you what to make sense of it all. In this case, technology marketing. How low can we go? I should say by low, I didn't mean low, I meant deep low. I mean, this is rabbit hole territory. So, we're faced with wall-to-wall, being analysts, we're faced with wall-to-wall marketing. So, I mean, is being an analyst marketing? Shouldn't be.
I like to think of it as the anti-marketing if we do it right.
Ooh, well, that's the perfect starting point for the webinar podcast. What are we doing here? I mean, this is marketing in some ways, only it isn't. Trouble is, this is the problem with marketing. Everything, when you're in the marketing world, everything becomes marketing. This just becomes content. That's going to be, if I had a room 101 of tech marketing, that would be the first thing I'd throw into it. It's that everything in marketing becomes just content. It doesn't become a thing. It becomes the package that the thing goes into.
Well, I mean, the internet is based on the philosophy that if no one knows you, it doesn't matter what you do, kind of thing, right? So if you have no engagement, if you have no recognition, if you have no awareness, the rest of it doesn't really matter, right? And thus, everything that you put on the internet to some degree is either marketing or sales.
In print, I mean, there's razzle dazzle stuff going on there, isn't there? In that, I'm thinking Richard Gere. I'm not going to sing it, so we can all be grateful for that. But also, P.T. Barnum. It's there's a sucker born every minute. Everything ultimately is about the shizzle. Is about the bait and switch.
All I can think is Bert Kreischer. Razzle dazzle, Dad.
There you go.
I haven't seen the Bert Kreischer special on Netflix. I highly recommend it. It's very good.
Okay, there's top tip for everybody. And so we wanted to talk about tech marketing. I think we've got a problem in this industry. If I can summarize it from my perspective, it's that it's all about new things. It's the information age. It's the age of innovation. It's the age of creating things that didn't exist anymore. We've been doing it for 50 years. But that creates a vortex of change, which is part and parcel of what was inevitably going to happen because we just literally didn't have computers before. But equally, the more that you can change through stealth or through, whether or not change needs to happen, the more money you'll make. So the marketing is actually, it's not about how good are my products. It's about how can we get people to change, which to me goes quite deep to the root of the problems that we face here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I agree with that, right? Marketing is about change. There's no, it's about changing your decision at the very least, changing your mind, right? What would you have done before you were exposed to this piece of marketing? I'm not sure that that's how people think of the purpose or point. I'm not sure that marketing people think of it a whole heck of a lot all the time, right? And I think that's part of the problem. I think there's a wide gulf between marketing people and the people that make the things and design the things that marketing people are helping to market, right? And entirely too often, I see situations where all I can think of is this thing only exists so VCs will give them money, right? Because I can in no way find out why you would ever want to do it, right? Like wrappers around things where the thing can solve the problem if properly implemented is a little bit of a weird one for me.
And that's kind of, solutions in search of a problem. So some of the best products I see are often the ones, and certainly when in my space around the DevOps world, generally they've come from people that were really frustrated. They were working for a big company, were working for possibly a technology-oriented company. I'm thinking of the people in Honeycomb that came out of Meta, for example.
Sure.
And they thought, I hate this. Let's build something to solve for that. And then someone else said, that's really cool. You should do something with that. Or they thought it. And off it went. And they created a great product. Whereas when you've got something that's just it's
That happens a lot.
all marketing. Let's create something no one needs and make it seem so important in their minds.
Yeah, but it can happen it can happen three ways, right? It can happen as the result of solving a problem, good or bad or indifferent, doesn't matter. Then it can be, let's market vaporware, knowing it's vaporware because people will pay for it. And then the third one is technology for technology's sake. There's nothing wrong with the product. It's a great product, but it doesn't actually solve a problem. Right? You've built a product to solve a problem that isn't the problem that exists, but rather the problem that you thought it was because you read it in Flight magazine or whatever the equivalent is for that. Right? And I see that one almost as often, right? Where you're like, you completely missed the point of what your customers are trying to solve. No, but we talked to them. But did you really? Or did you ask them 3 or 4 pre-canned questions that led to the conclusion that you had already decided you wanted? That's not talking to people. Right? How did you get them to think about the problem introspectively? How did you get them to analyze the problem objectively without their own bias on top of it? Right? And the answer is you probably didn't, because most people don't do that naturally. Most people don't default to that behavior, and therefore you have to create a scenario or a situation whereby that situation is created to force them to do that.
I'm trying, and then you get into that kind of self-justificatory loop. And I'm trying to draw the Venn diagram of this. I'm not sure it works as a Venn diagram, but the kind of, okay, you got solution and problem aligned group, born of frustration. At the other end of the scale, you've got, there was never a problem, but we've created a solution, and we know that it's literally selling gold watches to gold diggers or something. They never needed them anyway.
Right.
And then in the middle, you've actually got the level of denial, and it's dishonesty with yourself. Is we believe that this is, and I've seen that it's the Kool-Aid fuels this as well. That vendors will create something that no one needed, but they'll believe people needed it because they thought it was a good idea.
Yeah, because they've been drinking the Kool-Aid, right? They invested all this time and all this money, and therefore we can't be wrong. If we're wrong, right, what does that actually say? What does that say about the thing I've invested all my time in?
And you solve for that, I think, to your point, by actually, I mean, if you're literally deliberately creating vaporware, then not good luck to you, but at least you're being honest about your dishonesty. So you guys go over there.
I mean, nobody that's creating vaporware is honest about creating vaporware, not until after it's sold.
Sure, but you know it. There's a kind of you wouldn't go and speak to customers because you'd get found out.
I mean, there are plenty of successful, certainly early security companies that were just vaporware, and they sold to someone else. Like, they were acquired by someone else really early on for large amounts of money, while the people walked away laughing behind their hands until the check cleared.
Yeah, right? That's kind of what I mean. I mean, they're crooks, but at least you can't solve for crookery.
I mean, they're crooks in the same way that was it Barnum that made the quote, right?
Yeah,
the same quote that you used at the beginning. There's a sucker born every minute, right? At some point, everyone has a duty to do their due diligence, right? And so if you buy a company if you're a tech company and you acquire a company that is vaporware, that's kind of on you as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, you should have enough knowledge to be able to do the due diligence to find out this is paper mache, a couple of sticks and a coat hanger. Don't buy this. Right. And sure, everybody makes a mistake and all that sort of stuff. At the same time, when your job is to know better, then some percentage of the responsibility falls on you. The majority still falls on the person that's out to sucker the industry. But I don't think it's just, well, that's too bad, let's move on. You know what I mean?
I'm thinking I can mention the topic, but I probably shouldn't go into any detail because it's an ongoing court case between HPE and Autonomy, where there's an ongoing court case around whether the wool was pulled over the eyes of HPE by the execs at Autonomy. But what were they thinking at HPE? I can say that it was a kind of open secret that it was very Autonomy was a very, very difficult company to penetrate. And HP just was never very good at software, and it was never very good at due diligence. Hence why it sold the large proportion of it, well, all of its software to Micro Focus, and now it's all part of OpenText. It was just never very good at software or the due diligence aspects. So I agree with you. I'm on it in terms of if something seems too good to be true, it probably is, as my mother would have once said.
I mean, we all wondered the same thing when Symantec bought Clearwell. Because the Clearwell was the standard for e-discovery years and years and years before Symantec bought it. And if you search for Clearwell within e-discovery, the name would be mentioned everywhere. That was because Clearwell had the standard import and export format. So you would export to Clearwell format, and then you could port that to just about any other e-discovery platform that could read, because they could all read the Clearwell format, right? And so it seemed like there was all kinds of business in Clearwell. And we all left because the only people using Clearwell were those stuck with Clearwell from a decision they had made years before. No one was actively using Clearwell to really move e-discovery forward, right? And they paid $390 million for that.
I mean, yeah, you're just reminding me. I mean, there's all kinds of stories. There was a company called Aveco, which, if they had a product, I think there was enough hubris in the people running the company to make me believe, although I never got to the bottom of this, that it was a sandbox. It was an antivirus sandbox thing. You just kind of, put it in, explode it, see if it causes anything. If it does, then trigger an alert and don't let it get any further. But the whole business, in hindsight, was about getting money out of investors. And it had people, it had a nice office, it had people building things, but whether or not it would ever reach any scale was never the point. I think their goal was to get sold to a Symantec or whoever.
Sure.
But they never quite reached anything that anyone wanted to buy. So they kind of, I'm sure there's there's hundreds of thousands of companies that did that. They got money out of investors and then spent it and vanished. But it's always interesting to see how, and it's back to the marketing thing, how when you're looking at the website or the press releases, it all looks ever so kosher. It all looks 100% exactly like the company would, and it's just a bit stealth. So you got to be quite careful to. I think show me the demo is always a good starting point for, show me the customer that's loving this thing.
Okay, so that's a really good. Let's spend a second on that one. The iPhone is not vaporware, right? By all accounts, it's not vaporware. It's a highly successful product. However, when Steve Jobs demoed the iPhone in its international debut on stage, he went in a very specific order of actions, because had he changed the order, the whole thing would lock up and have to be reset on stage.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If he made the phone call in a different order, the phone call wouldn't work, the phone would lock up, and the whole thing would go kaput. Right? If it was a company other than Apple, that could easily be their demo. This still doesn't work at that stage. Right? And yet, the logic of show me the demo. Well, okay, but I can probably make a demo do just about anything I want to, right? I mean, wireframing tools today are really good, right? And if I control all of the inputs and all of the outputs, I can show you a pretty whiz-bang demo, right? I don't know if you've been following AI Pin.
No,
I think that's what it's called. So it's a like a new type of cell phone that has integrated AI, no screen. It's designed to be like on you like a pin.
Yeah, got it.
Marquise Brunel's getting a lot of flack because effectively there are claims that his review killed AI Pin. Right? No, the lack of a real product killed AI Pin, but all of the reviews echoed the same sentiment, which was, this is painfully bad. This is not a product. This is not real. Why are we still doing these things? Right? And it came from a place, I think, of everyone wanting it to work, because it was a really interesting, like, I don't think anyone thinks or thought before seeing it that the cell phone could be disrupted. Right? And then all of a sudden, this thing comes along. Oh, I interact with my voice. There's no screen. I just use gestures. Right? It's an always-on AI assistant. It can do all kinds of interesting, neat things, and none of it ended up being true.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I get it. Like, you've got a bunch of investors that want to see you make money, but at some point you have to say, no, we're not releasing a product yet, and maybe don't start marketing it before it's, there, because you're not Apple. Right? I mean, you don't have those resources. You don't have that depth of experience.
This goes to one. We don't have to cover all of the pitfalls of technology marketing. We can stick with this one. It's literally, have you got a product that is applicable enough to sufficiently sized problem space out there that there's value to be delivered. So the product's got to work. It's got to solve enough of a problem that's costly enough to make someone want to spend on it sufficiently to then pay for the product's existence. And what we're talking about here are companies that don't do that. They build something that no one needs, or they don't build something that people might need or might not, but they'll never find out because it never works. So they don't even get into the nitty gritty of the complexities of marketing, because this is just about product.
I mean, that's, I don't know, like, a marketing just about product isn't any better than the alternative, I think. Right? It's kind of, once again, it's really easy to talk about your product. Right? Marketing teams do it all day long, all the time. But we as consumers need to stop caring. Right? Because effectively, every time we do that, we allow the marketing team to define the conversation, and we lose track of the fact that that's not the conversation we want to have at all. Right? No one starts the car buying journey with, I really like the position of the AC button. Yet car makers talk about that sort of shit.
For sure.
Right? No. I need a car that solves one of these 4 challenges. It's never, by the way, it's never, ever gas mileage. You've just been convinced it is. Because the cost of a new car outweighs the cost of any gas savings that you would ever see ever in your life from that new car. Right? The cheapest car you could possibly buy at $10,000 is going to take you forever to get back the 4 to 10 miles per gallon difference in economy. Right? I can't do the maths the other way. I don't know what the maths work
Yep.
out to for liters per 100K, but it would take
Same with,
forever, right?
same with carbon cost.
Right.
Buying an electric car is not green.
Well, buying an electric car versus if you're in the car market, buying an electric car versus a new ICE car could be
greener.
correct, greener, right? But replacing an existing car that is otherwise fine to be green is the antithesis of being green.
Yeah.
Right? It's the reuse that's the most valuable within the green framework, because I've already paid that cost, and now it's iterative every time I drive. But back to what I was saying, right? The fact is, we need to talk about why this thing exists. We need to focus on what problem are we solving, and then we as consumers need to look at the problem and say, is this really a problem? What is the risk to allowing this problem to continue? And how can I ascribe value or assign value to that risk? And start thinking about these things a little clearer, and start calling companies when they're phoning it in.
I think that there's a challenge that we all face, which comes down to our susceptibility, and it's what the tech industry plays on to a large extent. And I'm thinking of the example of ebooks, where there was a period, and I didn't subscribe to it, and thank goodness I wrote about I don't believe this at the time. There was a period where everyone was being told you'll never need to buy another book. Books, not quite as far as books are bad, but books are pointless. But why have a shelf full of books? You can just have them all on your Kindle. You can have them all on your tablet, etc., etc. And the susceptibility aspect comes in. You're like, oh, maybe I don't need real books. Maybe I should become a kind of pseudo cyborg that can scroll my way through creative work rather than flicking the pages. And then, of course, you get that 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, even later backlash of, crap, I love books. Why would I want to stop reading books? Books are great because of the tactility, because of this, because of that. But we do go into this phase of, maybe it's me that's wrong and everyone else is right. And technology marketing plays to that. I'll get with the program.
All marketing plays to that, right?
Yeah.
I would also say the Kindle changed the way I bought books. Hands down. I read everything on the Kindle first. If it's enduring and I'm going to read it more than once, I will buy the book. I will buy the hardcover only. And if it's paperback, it goes out of the house. I have some paperbacks, but I've had those paperbacks for more than 10 years. It's a very small selection. When my wife and I moved, I get rid of about 4,000, 5,000 books from our house. My house was covered in stacks of books. And I just effectively said, well, if I want it to endear in my library, it needs to be hardcover. It needs to be something that I care about. So let's get rid of all of the softbacks. And if I'm going to keep it, then it actually does need to be a book that I care about, that I'm going to reread. Everything else goes to the Kindle, which is also nice because I read really fast, and that allows me to carry 30 books with me. So I finish a book, I start another book. That book doesn't have to endear. I can close it. I can open up a new book, and I can check them out directly from the library now.
There's 100% place for Kindles and books. Don't get me wrong. So I read the entire Joe Abercrombie series, and it was great. I just downloaded, got another one.
Which Joe Abercrombie series?
Oh, the first two series.
First Law.
Those ones. I'd have to look them up. But there were 3 books in each. I seem to remember.
Was it the one?
I can check my Kindle.
The one with the bloody 9.
Yes, indeed.
I only dig in because if we're on the let's give people recommendations, that is a fantastic kind of hard fantasy. It starts with the blade itself, then Before They Are Hanged, Last Argument of Kings, and Best Served Cold. I highly recommend that series for those that are tired of the happy ending fantasy stuff where The farm boy as a child turns out to be the chosen one, and
Oh,
all that stuff, right?
yeah, no, I went to the local library once, and I picked up as many books as I could have on my library card, which was like 8, and I got the first of 8 fantasy series. Don't ask me which they were. They all started with a boy, lost his parents.
Yes, always the orphan boy, right?
All very sad, and guess what? He becomes the Dragon Lord. I don't think there was a she, which is it was all some lad who
Well, that has changed, right? Let's not forget that there's also the producer will have to tell me what the topic's technically called, but it's effectively fantasy erotica for women. That is also somewhat of a it's new. It's also somewhat annoying. Not that I mind the genre, but authors are being told lean far. That's not. I'm not saying that, Johnny. Authors are told to lean further into the romance, regardless of what they want, because it sells. It's marketable. Kind of back to the marketing thing that we're talking about, right? Which is
and Joe Abercrombie was very anti. I'm going to write the stuff that isn't.
Well, you could tell all his characters are hated.
Yeah. They're all broken. They're all hateable.
They're all middle-aged people from a war zone.
The Gandalf equivalent is most unlikable and corrupt, which made me laugh. It was like, well, what do you expect? Which was perfect. But back on the books thing. So one of the darker secrets of the book thing is actually the subscription model. So it's my wife's in a book club. They buy books. They get them from charity shops, secondhand shops, whatever stores, and then they give them back, and then so there's a market for used books, and round they go, which obviously doesn't appeal to publishers as much as getting people to buy books once for themselves and can never lend it, share it.
Oh yeah, see, I'm the opposite of all of that. I read Kindle because if I'm only going to read it once, after that it's a hardcover. The hardcover does not leave my house. I prefer to buy it new because I want to make sure that the artist gets my dollars, even if it's few dollars. Like I'm inordinately weird about hardcover books among all of the different things that I have or collect, right? Like,
you didn't need to say about hard. Oh, I see. Yeah, the qualifier wasn't necessarily.
No. It's just other media I'm not so firm on. Although it's back there. I have a record collection. This is maybe 30 records that I listen to frequently, and then I have stacks in the basement.
Nice,
right?
Yeah, I'm more like that on music. I'll listen to something on Spotify happily, and if I like it, then I'll buy it, and then I'll carry on listening to it on Spotify, because then the artist in principle gets both bites of the cherry.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I like to buy physical media of artists, ideally artists and albums that I like, which aren't necessarily the same thing. Right? There's a lot of artists where I like one song, and if I veer out that one song, I get totally lost and don't understand why I like this artist to begin with, kind of thing. There are other artists where I like I hear one song a lot, it's kind of poppy and neat, and then you dive into their music and you go, oh my goodness, this is incredible.
I had
and
no
sounds
idea.
nothing like the popular track.
Yep.
Right? Like if you played them back to back, just the popular track to whatever else is on the album, you'd be like, oh wow, why did somebody change the music? It's a weird shift. Right?
I feel I do need to give a mention to our producer Johnny Beltisberger, because he is a wildly successful author of horror books, which are available both on electronic and hardcover format. And I do also think that we're veering slightly away from the topic of technology marketing pitfalls, but it's really interesting. I think the segue back into is that the weird conclusion I always reach is there's plenty of stuff that people do want, and actually there is an easy route through of, back to what you were saying about, find out what problems people are having and solve for them. And there is success to be had without necessarily creating stuff that's out of the ether.
Sure. And don't stop trying to sell me your made up BS. Like, I'm exhausted by it. I just no longer have the energy to be nice when you send me over a copy on a problem that's already solved within proper implementation, because someone that doesn't properly someone that doesn't properly um, install, configure, and run the root tool isn't going to properly run the wrapper around it that solves the problem that it already solves. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
if you didn't properly configure your insert name of tool, adding a wrapper to solve the problem that the tool would solve if you properly configured it is not the way to handle that. And it is impossible for me to get excited when you bring your marketing to me that says, here's a thing we've made up to solve a problem that is already solved with proper implementation.
It took me. I'm going to finish with my favorite two Sky Mall catalog references. For any young people out there that it's not on the planes anymore, it was this fantastic catalog of things you never needed on internal American flights. My absolute favorite is the marshmallow launcher, which started with the unlike other marshmallow launchers marketing statement, which is the best thing ever. But the second one was,
I
and it
like
took
that
me a
one.
while. It took me a while to work it out. Was coffee pods that you could fill yourself, and so you could
Sure.
happily fill
Sure.
up the
My wife
coffee
bought
pods.
those,
And
by the
then,
way. My wife bought the coffee pod that you fill yourself. And I'm like, honey, I don't know that you're understanding the point of the coffee pod. It's supposed to be convenient, and you've made it the most inconvenient form of
yeah,
coffee possible.
because if you want to fill something, you just fill the thing that the
Right. The
so
yes, the coffee maker that came before the one cup.
the
So
the one credit I'll give is no, actually it wasn't coffee pods. It was coffee, like coffee tea bag things,
okay.
which you then put in. This was before Nespresso and all that. So you'd fill the bags and then put them into exactly the same thing that you would put a spoonful of coffee into. And several months after
Awesome.
flying on that internal flight, I went, "Oh my goodness."
I will say I like a uh, uh, um, marshmallow gun. Um, they're a ton of fun with dogs. You can't do a lot of them, but they're a ton of fun shooting marshmallows at your dog and having the dog, you know, get the snack. I got one. I got a LinkedIn message the other day. It says, "Hey Howard, we've had an overwhelming response from over 10 leaders like you, and we will discuss the internal social identity challenges your company faces. To maximize time and value for everyone, we limit attendance to the first 10 people who respond and can commit to attending." So I replied and said, "Seems like you're already full. Thanks anyhow." Because he said, "We've had an overwhelming response with more than 10 leaders," which I don't understand how 10 ever became the indicator of overwhelming response. "But then we limit it to 10. So you're already full. What are you reaching out to me about? Congratulations, you are successful. I don't know what to do with that." And yes, I was feeling snarky, but I get advertised to, I get pitched constantly. And it just gets to a point where I just kind of want to go, come on.
Do you know what? Yeah.
Right? It's like my post on LinkedIn from a couple weeks ago where I said, stop saying partnership. If you're just trying to sell me something, there is no partnership. I will instantly unfollow you. I will instantly unsubscribe. I will instantly put you in the black hole of never going to work with you ever again.
Oh goodness, we could do a whole podcast on amusing messages that I've received in not friend, whatever LinkedIn requests about collaboration, partnering.
Yeah, it's not collaboration if I'm buying your thing. It's not
I've
partnering if
looked
I'm
at
buying your thing,
I've
right?
looked at your profile and I think you look amazing, which always
Right.
makes me feel good, even though it's generated by a computer. And here's why we should. I don't know. It just goes into the weeds from that point on.
Well, I also love the ones that are like, I looked at your website and companies just like you are doing this thing that I don't ever do, nor would ever do, nor does it even remotely apply to me.
Yeah.
Right? It's like
Yeah.
I don't think you did. I don't think you did at all, right? Or they get super generic. Like the only thing that's specific is the name GigaOhm. Everything after that is wicked generic, and you're like, again, right? I'd rather you just didn't lie to me, because it's lying. I don't care what you say. It is absolutely lying when you are purposefully disingenuous,
Mm.
right? Like, I get the message that I read. Okay, cool. I get it. Whoever created that message just didn't put any thought into how numbers work. Like, okay, fine, right? You could have said, we've done many of these before and have had hundreds of
Well,
successful, conversations. Like, that would have been useful. But when you say we have more than 10 people interested, but we can only take 10,
but this
what are
is
you talking to me for?
my takeaway from the whole thing is a little bit of do your homework. It's either honesty and homework. There you go. It's the two H's of marketing. Either tell me something that is true, or just check whether it's true by finding out before you ask me. So it could be about me, it could be about the market, it could be about anything. Just find out whether or not your theories about me, about your product, about the solution, the problem space, have any resemblance to the reality that you're trying to present.
Well, one of the things I like to say is, don't give me an opportunity to say no. Right?
Exactly.
Stop giving me opportunities to say no. And every time you're disingenuous, it just raises a red flag, and I go, cool, I'm out. You could have the greatest thing in the world, but the moment your marketing is disingenuous, you lose the opportunity forever. Forever. And I will likely tell people, this company is not genuine. They are being disingenuous in their marketing. Right? So even if you have the best product in the world, your marketing is BS, I'm out. You've made a claim that's unsubstantiatable, I'm out. Right? I'm just done with you. I just can't. Right? And then the same thing, sales, right? The second your sales team does the same thing, I'm out. You've lost my trust. The whole goal is to build trust enough that I am confident enough to give you money. And the second you stop doing that, I'm out. And I have to be out. Right? If I can't trust you in the sales cycle, if I can't trust you in the marketing cycle, there's no way I can trust you post-purchase. And I would be not doing my job. Right? I would be violating the primary principle of leadership, which is be fiducially responsible. I don't know that I said that correctly, but being responsible with the company's money.
Yeah.
By giving money to people I don't trust. Like, that's just, it's wrong. It's broken.
It doesn't work from the outside. If you say something untrustworthy as your entry point to a conversation, where does that go?
Right.
It's all clawback from that point on. Maybe if you did that and then apologized profusely, then we could start again, but that would require a reset. So just don't bother.
I do get those emails too, where they make a big claim and then they go, well, not really. This is what we actually do. I can at least deal with those. You know what I mean? Like, okay, cool. Like, you what's the website that's all about the headline? Really, really popular, like, news-ish current event site that's just all about the headline.
Oh, not
BuzzFeed.
Upworthy. No.
BuzzFeed.
Yes.
Right. That's what BuzzFeed does, right? Is hook you with the headline. I'm cool with that. You hooked me with the headline. Good for you. Make it relevant after that point, though. Right?
For sure. Cool.
Well, I hope this has been interesting to other people. This has certainly been fun for John and I think. This has been another episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Techy. Hopefully our producer found it interesting enough that he's going to publish it. If not, maybe this one hits the cutting room floor. If you've stuck with us long enough and listened long enough, you know what? Comment and we'll give you a free 6-month subscription to our GigaOM research. I'm Howard Holton, as always, with my friend John Collins, and this is The Good, the Bad, and the Techy. Please like, subscribe, follow, comment, share, to all of the things, and have a great week.